1932, Australia declared war on a bird. Machine guns, trained soldiers, a government's pride. Against them, 20,000 emus who refused to run. The humans had the weapons. The emus had the numbers. This is the war humanity lost. In the winter of 1932, on the edge of an unforgiving continent, a strange war was about to begin. Western Australia's wheat belt stretched for miles, carved from the wilderness by men who had survived something far worse than birds. These were former soldiers, veterans of the Great War, given land by their government as a reward for survival. They were promised prosperity, fertile land, and a fresh start, far away from the trenches that haunted their memories. Instead, they found drought, isolation, and soil that fought back against every single seed they planted. Still, they endured, clearing land by hand, building fences, and praying for a harvest that would finally save them. By 1932, after years of struggle, the wheat finally grew tall, golden, and full of long-awaited promise. But far beyond the fences, something ancient was stirring, drawn by instinct toward the very fields these men had built. Every year, tens of thousands of emus migrated inland after breeding season, searching for water and food to survive. But that year, drought had stolen their usual feeding grounds, and hunger pushed them somewhere they had never gone before. 20,000 emus turned toward the coast, straight into the heart of the newly settled farmland. The farmers had never seen anything like it, a living flood of feathers rolling across their land. Within days, entire fields lay flattened, months of labor destroyed by beaks, claws, and relentless trampling feet. Water tanks meant for families and livestock were drained dry, leaving nothing behind but dust and despair. The farmers realized with growing dread that they could not fight this enemy alone, no matter how hard they tried. Desperate and outnumbered, the farmers wrote directly to their government, begging for weapons, soldiers, and immediate help. Their plea reached the Minister of Defense himself, a man named Sir George Pierce, holding real political power. To the farmers, this was no laughing matter. It was survival, their entire livelihood hanging by a thread. News of the crisis spread quickly, and the government, eager to help its struggling veterans, made a bold decision. Weapons built for war on European battlefields would now be sent against a flightless bird in the outback. Major GWNYDD Purves Wynne Meredith, a decorated artillery officer, was chosen to lead this unusual military operation. Alongside him marched 2 soldiers, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and a plan that felt almost too simple. They traveled for days across harsh terrain, arriving near the district of Campion in early November. The farmers greeted the soldiers like liberators, certain that professional weapons would finally end their suffering. Meredith studied the land carefully, mapping water sources and migration paths, confident in his military experience. His plan was simple: wait near the water and let the enemy walk directly into the line of fire. Hundreds of emus gathered nearby, completely unaware that history was about to be written that very night. The soldiers steadied their weapons, hearts pounding, certain that victory would come swiftly and decisively. For a brief moment, the outback fell completely silent, as if the entire land was holding its breath. Then, without warning, the first shots of the Great Emu War tore through quiet outback air. Gunfire erupted across the plain, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed the soldiers had the upper hand. A handful of birds fell, and the soldiers felt a surge of confidence rush through their tired bodies. But something unexpected happened. The emus did not panic in a single, predictable direction. Capable of running nearly 50 kilometers an hour, they scattered like guerrilla fighters across open ground. The soldiers struggled to aim, their heavy weapons far too slow for such fast, erratic targets. Within minutes, one of the machine guns jammed completely, falling silent at the worst possible moment. By the time the gun was repaired, the majority of the flock had already vanished into the horizon. Major Meredith stood in stunned silence, staring at a battlefield that refused to behave like one. Only a small number of emus have been killed, a disappointing result after such careful preparation. Hundreds of rounds have been fired, yet the enemy population barely seemed to notice the difference. Refusing to accept failure, Meredith began revising his strategy, determined to outsmart his feathered opponents. He planned a second assault, this time targeting a much larger group gathered near open farmland. Scouts reported an astonishing sight. Over 1,000 emus gathered together in a single, massive group. This, Meredith believed, was his chance to strike a decisive and unforgettable blow against the invasion. At dawn, the soldiers moved into position, confident that this battle would finally turn in their favor. In a bold new tactic, they mounted their machine gun directly onto the back of a truck. The plan was daring. Chase the fleeing birds down and fire directly from a moving vehicle. As the truck roared forward, the massive flock erupted into a chaotic, thundering stampede of feathers. But the terrain was brutal, and the truck bounced violently, throwing the gunner off balance entirely. Unable to steady his aim, the soldier could not fire a single meaningful shot at the enemy. Incredibly, the emus proved faster than the vehicle, vanishing into the scrub before a shot was fired. The soldiers watched helplessly as their high-tech pursuit ended in complete and utter humiliation. Word of the failed chase reached the press, and journalists could not resist a story this absurd. Newspapers across the country began mocking the operation, calling it a war the military was losing. In Parliament, opposition politicians seized a moment, ridiculing the government for wasting military resources on birds. Some even joked that the emus deserved medals for their remarkable resistance against machine gun fire. Meredith felt the sting of public ridicule, yet he refused to abandon the mission entrusted to him. Despite the mounting criticism, he pressed forward, convinced that persistence would eventually secure a true victory. Day after day, the soldiers pursued scattered flocks across increasingly difficult and unforgiving terrain. The relentless heat, dust, and endless chase began to wear down even the most determined soldiers. Reports began arriving showing an uncomfortable truth. Most of the ammunition was simply missing its mark. Nearly 10,000 rounds had been fired, yet only a few hundred emus had actually been killed. Word of the staggering ammunition cost reached government officials, who grew increasingly alarmed by the numbers. Sir George Pierce faced mounting pressure, forced to question whether this war could ever truly be won. Meredith later admitted, with quiet astonishment, that the emus seemed to organize like a disciplined army. Each flock appeared to have its own sentry, a watchful bird that raised the alarm of danger. The moment shots rang out, the birds scattered in perfect, almost tactical, unpredictable formations. It was, he confessed, as if they had studied warfare themselves and refused to be defeated easily. After just 6 days of fighting, the government ordered the military operation to be withdrawn entirely. The soldiers packed their weapons in silence, leaving the battlefield without the victory they had promised. Behind them, the outback fell quiet once more, scarred but ultimately unconquered by human weapons. Across Australia and the world, newspapers declared the operation an embarrassing and unforgettable military failure. International press picked up the story, turning the flightless bird into an unlikely global symbol of resilience. For the farmers left behind, the humor faded quickly, replaced by the harsh reality of survival. Without military support, they were forced to find their own solutions to protect what remained of their harvest. The government introduced a bounty system, paying farmers directly for every emu they managed to eliminate. Surprisingly, this simple, local approach proved far more effective than any military operation had ever been. Over the following months, tens of thousands of emus were managed, and the farmland slowly began to recover. Where machine guns had failed, patience, adaptation, and local knowledge ultimately protected the farmers' fragile harvest. The Great Emu War became one of history's strangest military engagements, remembered for its sheer absurdity. Decades later, the story still fascinates historians, a bizarre reminder that nature does not surrender easily. Today, the emu remains a national symbol, protected, respected, and forever tied to this strange legend. It stands as proof that even the mightiest weapons cannot always conquer instinct, adaptation, and sheer will. In the end, the land remembered its true masters, patient, resilient, and impossible to fully defeat. This was a Great Emu War, a story so strange it could only be true history.